In a single, unexpected moment, a forgotten secret shatters a lifetime of carefully built facades and unspoken regrets. Before we dive into this gripping saga of lost love, hidden deceptions, and the painful yet redemptive journey of family, subscribe now to join our community of story enthusiasts. Now, step into a world where the quiet rustle of leaves at a cemetery hides a truth that will forever alter the course of one man's destiny. Marcus Hale adjusted his polished shoes as he stepped into the silent cemetery that afternoon. The air was cool and still, the only sound the soft crunch of gravel beneath his feet. It was the 4th anniversary of his father's death, a day Marcus had observed with painful ritual. Clutching a bouquet of pristine white lilies, he walked slowly among the neatly arranged rows of headstones, each marker a silent testament to the passage of time and unresolved words. Today, his heart felt heavier than ever as memories and unspoken regrets pressed down upon him. When Marcus reached the familiar headstone engraved with the name Robert Hale, his breath hitched. He knelt to place the bouquet carefully by the stone, his hands trembling ever so slightly. The meticulous arrangement of the flowers was a small attempt to smooth over the jagged edges of his memory, a symbolic gesture meant to hide the unsaid confessions and unexpressed accusations that had built up over the years. Just as he bent to straighten the bouquet's edges, a quiet sound reached his ears, a soft, almost inaudible murmur, as if a small voice was speaking in the hushed atmosphere of the graveyard. Turning his head, Marcus noticed a young boy, no more than 10 years old, crouched a few feet away beneath the protective shadow of a marble angel. The child was slight and pale, wearing an oversized hoodie that hung loosely on his small frame. His lips moved in a silent apology as he knelt by the grave. "I'm sorry," the boy whispered in a tone so soft it seemed almost lost in the ambient hush. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. Confusion and curiosity warred within him as he approached the child. "Hey, kid," Marcus said gently, his deep voice breaking the silence. "I think you've got the wrong grave." The boy looked up, his wide eyes reflecting both sorrow and confusion, and he shook his head slowly. "No, Mom said this is Grandpa's grave," he murmured, his voice trembling with a mix of innocence and uncertainty. The name Grandpa sent a jolt of shock through Marcus. He had not expected to encounter any living connection to his past here. His mind raced through memories of a long-ago summer, of laughter, of tears, and of a woman whose name had been lost in time. Now, as the boy's eyes met his, a familiarity stirred deep within him. It was as if the child carried a reflection of a life Marcus had once known, a life now shattered and scattered like autumn leaves. Marcus straightened, his heart pounding in his chest. "What's your name, son?" he asked, careful not to sound too harsh. The boy hesitated before softly replying, "Jamie." In that moment, the years of distance, the painful separation, and the secrets that had long been buried under layers of ambition and regret began to unfurl like a dark tapestry around them. Marcus's mind reeled as he recalled fragments of a life that had once been. Emily Carter's laughter in a sunlit room, her gentle touch, and the way her eyes shone with hope. For a moment, he saw in Jamie the same dark brown hair and determined gaze that had so captivated him all those years ago. "Your mom?" Marcus managed, his voice catching on the question. "Who is your mom?" "Emily," Jamie replied softly, his gaze flickering away from Marcus as if the name carried too much weight for his small heart. In that instant, Marcus realized with a jolt that the boy before him was not a stranger. The realization hit him like a tidal wave. Emily Carter was not only a memory of a lost love, but also the mother of the son he had never known. The weight of responsibility, regret, and long-suppressed longing collided within him in a single, shattering moment. Staring at the headstone, Marcus felt both trapped and liberated by the truth. Here, in the quiet solitude of the cemetery, fate had forced him to confront a past he had spent years trying to escape. With a heavy heart and an uncertain mind, he extended a tentative hand toward Jamie. "Come with me, Jamie. Let's get out of here," he said softly, hoping that the journey ahead might somehow mend what had been broken. As the two walked away together, the cemetery seemed to fade behind them, leaving Marcus with more questions than answers and the bittersweet promise of a new beginning that neither of them was quite ready to face. Marcus drove in silence, the city lights blurring past as his thoughts churned in tumult. The quiet hum of the engine was punctuated by the steady, hesitant breathing of Jamie, who sat in the back seat. Marcus stole glances at the boy, trying to reconcile the image of this fragile child with the echoes of a past he had once tried so hard to bury. The revelation that Emily had raised Jamie alone, a secret that had festered for years, filled him with an overwhelming mix of regret, longing, and a desperate need for redemption. When they arrived at a modest apartment building in a quieter part of town, Marcus hesitated before pulling up to the curb. The building itself was unassuming, a stark contrast to the luxurious life Marcus had built for himself. It was a reminder that while he had conquered boardrooms and amassed wealth, he had failed in the one venture that truly mattered, the love of a family. Stepping out of the car, he felt as if he were stepping into a memory that had haunted him for decades. Inside, the atmosphere was different, a mix of worn furnishings and personal touches that spoke of hard-won resilience and everyday life. As Marcus entered the living room, he was met by a sharp, guarded gaze. Emily Carter stood near a faded green door, her eyes hard with a mixture of anger and sorrow. The tension in the room was palpable. Emily's features, though touched by the lines of hardship, still held an undeniable beauty, a beauty marred by years of betrayal and heartache. "Marcus," Emily said in a tone that was both accusatory and weary. "I didn't expect to see you here." Her voice was low, almost as if she were warning him that every word might unravel the fragile thread of peace she'd fought to preserve. Marcus's heart ached at her guarded stance. He remembered a time when her smile could light up an entire room, before ambitions and painful secrets drove them apart. Today, that smile was gone, replaced by an expression that spoke of years spent hiding behind walls of resentment. "I came because I need to understand," Marcus began, his voice tentative yet laden with emotion. "Jamie told me your name. I never knew." Emily's eyes narrowed, and for a long moment, silence reigned in the room, a silence filled with memories of a past both bitter and beautiful. The weight of unspoken words hung between them, heavy with the promise of unresolved conflicts and the possibility of reconciliation. Jamie stood quietly to the side, his small figure a silent witness to the adults' stormy reunion. The room felt charged, as if the air itself were waiting for the next word to break the dam of years of separation. Emily finally broke the silence with a bitter laugh that echoed with pain. "Too late for explanations, Marcus," she said. "You left, and you never cared to come back. I had to do it all alone." Her words cut deeply, each syllable a reminder of the love and trust that had once bound them together. Marcus's gaze fell to the floor, and the regret in his eyes was almost palpable. I never knew," he stammered. "I was consumed by the world I built. I left because I thought I was protecting us from a future that would only bring more pain." His admission was raw, honest, and filled with the sorrow of a man who had lost everything that truly mattered. In that moment, the past and present collided, and the scars of years of separation were laid bare. Emily's expression softened ever so slightly, though the hurt in her eyes remained. "It wasn't just about protection, Marcus," she said quietly. "It was about choices, the choices you made that left me and Jamie to fend for ourselves." The admission was both a confession and an accusation, a plea for understanding and a cry for justice. Marcus looked up, his eyes meeting hers with a mix of regret and pleading. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the word heavy with meaning. "I promise I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." Outside, the sound of rain beginning to tap against the window pane provided a melancholy backdrop to their conversation. For a long moment, Marcus and Emily stood on the precipice of reconciliation and regret, the truth of their shared past stretching out before them like an uncharted path. As they spoke, the memories of better days mingled with the pain of betrayal, creating a tapestry of love and loss that neither could easily dismiss. Jamie, sensing the gravity of the moment, stepped closer, his small hand reaching out as if to bridge the gap between the two broken hearts. In that tender gesture, Marcus saw hope, a chance to mend the fragments of a family torn apart by fate and circumstance. And so, with every word, every tear, and every silent promise, Marcus began the long, arduous journey to reclaim not just his lost love, but also the son he never knew he had. In the days that followed their initial, charged reunion, Marcus found himself drowning in the weight of memories and emotions he had long tried to suppress. Every corner of the modest apartment, every worn-out cushion, faded photograph, and handwritten note, whispered of a past he wished he could forget. Yet the truth was undeniable. The life he had abandoned was not lost, but had been waiting, like a dormant ember, for him to return. Late one evening, after the sun had dipped below the horizon and the city was bathed in a soft, melancholic glow, Marcus sat alone at the small kitchen table. The remnants of a hastily prepared dinner lay scattered before him as he stared at the silent notebook Emily had given him, a keepsake of memories, confessions, and secrets. The pages were filled with her gentle script, telling tales of love and despair, of moments both tender and cruel. As he traced his fingers over the worn edges of the paper, Marcus realized that every word was a testament to a life lived in hope despite heartbreak. Across the room, Jamie lay curled on a worn-out rug, his small face illuminated by the soft glow of a bedside lamp. The boy's eyes were heavy with sleep, but even in slumber, he seemed to hold on to dreams of a better future, a future that Marcus now yearned to be a part of. It was in these quiet moments that the magnitude of his failures and the possibility of redemption became painfully clear. Marcus recalled the summer they had once shared, when laughter and dreams had filled the days, when Emily's eyes sparkled with plans for a bookstore and adventures across the globe. That summer had ended in shouting, slammed doors, and a fracture that had forever altered their lives. And now, looking at Jamie's innocent face, Marcus was forced to confront the consequences of a long-forgotten decision. The guilt was overwhelming. Each memory was a dagger, each recollection a reminder of a love lost, and a child left yearning for a father who had been absent for far too long. Determined to break the cycle of regret, Marcus resolved that he would do whatever it took to heal these wounds. He began to share small stories with Jamie, stories of the past, of a time when life was simpler and love was abundant. With each tale, he hoped to build a bridge between the boy's uncertain present and the promise of a brighter future. Even as the shadows of the past loomed large, there was a tentative hope that, together, they could rewrite their shared history. One chilly night, as a soft rain began to fall outside, Marcus found the courage to speak the unspeakable. "Jamie," he said quietly, "I know I've missed so much. I was lost in my own world, and I failed to be there for you. But I want you to know, I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." The words were gentle, but each syllable carried the weight of years of remorse and longing. Jamie looked up, his eyes wide with both fear and cautious optimism. In that moment, the silence between them was filled with unspoken promises, a vow that the past, no matter how painful, could someday be transformed into a foundation for a better future. As the days turned into weeks, the small apartment slowly became a space where old wounds began to heal. Marcus and Emily, though still burdened by the ghosts of their former life, started forging a fragile understanding. Their conversations, once sharp with bitterness, gradually softened into a tentative dialogue filled with apologies, shared memories, and the recognition of mutual loss. It was not an easy journey, and each step was fraught with the risk of reopening old scars, but the promise of redemption outweighed the pain of confronting the past. Every night, as Marcus tucked Jamie into bed and read a passage from Emily's treasured notebook, he felt the weight of his past lesson, replaced by a small yet persistent hope. The unspoken words of regret and sorrow were slowly giving way to a new narrative, one where love, however fractured, had the power to heal and to bind a family back together. The next morning dawned with a soft, uncertain light, as if the world itself were holding its breath for the confrontation that was to come. Marcus awoke with the memory of the previous night's fragile hope still lingering like a whisper in the air. The small apartment was quiet, the only sound the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the rhythmic ticking of an old clock on the wall. Today, he knew, he had to face Emily directly. A confrontation long overdue, a reckoning with the years of silence and betrayal. As he made his way to the living room, Marcus found Emily seated by the window, her gaze lost in the distant, gray sky. The scars of the past were etched into her features, The fierce determination in her eyes had softened into a weary resignation. Marcus approached slowly, his footsteps echoing in the silent space between them. "Emily," he said softly, breaking the stillness. "We need to talk." Emily turned, her expression guarded yet pained. "Talk?" she repeated, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and sorrow. "After all these years, you show up as if nothing has changed?" Her tone was laden with accusation, each word a sharp reminder of the years spent apart. Marcus's eyes searched hers, pleading for understanding. "I know I've hurt you," he began, his voice heavy with regret. "I was consumed by my own ambitions, by the desire to build a legacy, and in doing so, I lost the one thing that mattered most. I never meant to abandon you or Jamie." His confession was raw, sincere, and it hung in the air like a fragile truce. Emily's gaze dropped to the worn carpet as she fought back tears. "You never cared," she whispered, the words barely audible. "Jamie grew up thinking you were just another stranger, and I had to face every day alone." The bitterness in her tone was palpable, a bitterness born of years of isolation and a love betrayed. For a long, tense moment, the only sound in the room was the soft patter of rain against the window. Marcus reached out hesitantly, as if unsure whether to bridge the chasm between them. "I'm sorry," he repeated, his voice cracking under the weight of his remorse. "I wish I could go back and change things, but all I can do now is try to be here. For you, for Jamie. I want to fix what's been broken, even if it takes a lifetime." Emily's eyes welled with tears as she looked at him, the pain and longing mingling on her face. "It's not that simple," she murmured. "The wounds run deep, Marcus. I had to make choices, hard choices, to protect us. I had to be strong for Jamie, even when you left us to fend for ourselves." Her words were a mixture of grief and resignation, the toll of years of hardship visible in every syllable. As the conversation unfolded, the room filled with a complex interplay of emotions: anger, sorrow, regret, and a tentative spark of hope. Marcus listened intently, understanding that healing would require more than words. It would demand patience, sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to rebuild a trust that had long been shattered. In the soft, diffused light of that uncertain morning, Marcus made a silent vow to do everything in his power to mend the broken pieces of their lives, to be the father and partner that had been so desperately needed all those years. Though the road ahead was steeped in memories of pain and loss, the promise of reconciliation glimmered like a fragile ray of sunlight piercing through the gray clouds. Emily's eyes met his, and in that moment, despite the hurt and the scars, there was a flicker of something almost like forgiveness. "I want to believe you," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you'll have to show me that you're truly here now, that you're ready to face the past and work towards a future where we can all heal." Her words were cautious, yet they carried the weight of a desperate hope, a hope that perhaps, against all odds, love could find a way. As the conversation drew to a close, the silence that settled between them was not empty, but filled with the possibility of renewal. Marcus knew that the path ahead would be long and fraught with difficulties, yet in that shared moment of vulnerability, he sensed that the first step toward redemption had finally been taken. In the weeks following that charged morning, Marcus became determined to uncover the truth behind the painful rift that had separated his life from Emily's and Jamie's. His mind was awash with questions about the intercepted letters, the secrets of his late father's business dealings, and the mysterious decisions that had led to his abandonment of the family he had once vowed to cherish. The old mansion where his father's lawyers still maintained a modest office held clues that Marcus knew he needed to piece together, however painful the journey might be. Late one rainy afternoon, Marcus found himself seated across from Harold, the family lawyer who had served as both confidant and, ultimately, enforcer of the decisions that had upended his life. The small, cluttered office was filled with the muted hum of a single overhead light, casting long shadows over stacks of files and dusty ledgers. Harold's face was lined with regret and resignation as he fidgeted with his glasses, a clear sign that he too was burdened by the weight of hidden truths. "Marcus," Harold began, his voice unsteady as he finally met his old client's searching gaze, "your father was a man who cared deeply about appearances. In his mind, our family's image was everything. He paused, running a trembling hand over a folder labeled Correspondence. He instructed me, and I followed his orders, to intercept any letters that might risk tarnishing that image. Emily's letters, they were a threat to the carefully constructed facade he wanted to uphold. The revelation hit Marcus like a freight train. All the years he had spent agonizing over the pain of abandonment now seemed to be part of a calculated plan to protect a legacy built on control and deception. "So, you intercepted them?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with a mix of anger and sorrow. "You blocked the words of the woman I loved, the very woman who was trying to keep our family together?" Harold's eyes dropped, burdened by the weight of guilt. I never meant for it to come to this. I believed I was protecting you, protecting the company, and even protecting Emily in a way. Your father, he was convinced that any public evidence of weakness would undermine everything he had built. His confession was hesitant, each word a struggle against years of secret complicity. Marcus's hands trembled as he clutched the folder. The pain of a father's betrayal, both his own and that of the man he had once admired, swirled inside him. "I never wanted this," he whispered, his voice raw with anguish. "I never wanted our family to suffer because of your father's obsession with reputation." As Harold explained further, revealing how the intercepted letters were altered, redacted, and even forged to present a version of events that suited the family's public image, Marcus felt his resolve harden. Every detail was a stark reminder of how deeply the past had been manipulated, a manipulation that had cost him the chance to be a present father to Jamie, and had driven Emily into a life of loneliness and quiet despair. With the evidence of deception now laid bare, Marcus resolved to confront every hidden truth. He took the folder and the intercepted letters back home, the weight of betrayal etched into each page. In the quiet solitude of his study, Marcus pored over every detail, determined to understand the full scope of the lies that had been spun around him. The clock ticked steadily in the background as he mapped out a plan to repair the damage, a plan that would require not only the truth to be spoken, but also the painful reconciliation of a fractured family. That evening, as he sat at the kitchen table with Jamie and Emily, Marcus's voice was quiet but resolute. "We can't change the past," he said, "but I promise you this. I'm going to make things right. We'll confront every lie, every deception, until there's nothing left but the truth. And maybe then, we can start healing." Emily's eyes glistened with tears, and Jamie reached out with small, hopeful hands. In that moment, the room was filled with a cautious promise, a promise that the future would be built on the foundations of truth, however painful they might be. The darkness of the past had been lifted, if only slightly, by the light of honesty. And though the journey ahead was uncertain, Marcus felt that for the first time in years, the path toward redemption was clear. In the days and weeks that followed the confrontation with Harold's confessions, the once frozen tension in the apartment began to thaw, slowly, tentatively. Marcus, Emily, and Jamie found themselves navigating the turbulent waters of a shared past, where the scars of deception were intermingled with the fragile buds of hope. Their home, once a battleground of silent accusations and bitter memories, now resonated with the quiet determination to heal. Marcus knew that rebuilding trust would require more than apologies or revelations. It meant small, daily acts of honesty, a shared cup of coffee in the early morning light, a gentle word offered in a moment of frustration, or a reassuring smile when the darkness of memory threatened to overwhelm. Each day, he made a conscious effort to listen, to Emily's unspoken sorrows, to Jamie's tentative questions about the past, and to his own inner voice urging him to atone for lost time. One evening, as a soft rain tapped against the window panes, Marcus gathered the family in the living room. The room was illuminated by the warm glow of a single lamp, its light dancing across well-worn photographs and cherished mementos. With a hesitant but earnest tone, he began to recount memories of a time when their lives were intertwined with laughter and shared dreams. He spoke of lazy summer afternoons spent at the park, of Emily's radiant smile, and of a promise he had once made, to always be there, no matter what. Emily listened quietly, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and the faintest spark of forgiveness. "I never wanted you to come back," she murmured at one point, her voice trembling. "But I always hoped that one day, you'd understand how much we needed you." Her words were soft, laden with regret for the years that had passed and the opportunities that had slipped away. In that moment, the walls built by years of pain began to crumble, replaced by a tentative understanding that the past, no matter how bitter, was a stepping stone to a new future. Jamie, his small hands clutched around a well-loved toy, looked up at Marcus with eyes filled with cautious optimism. "I don't know everything," he admitted in a small, quavering voice, "but I'm willing to try if you are." His words, innocent and direct, resonated deeply with Marcus. He nodded slowly, reaching out to gently ruffle Jamie's hair. "We're in this together," he promised, the weight of that pledge echoing in the silence that followed. Over time, as the days turned into weeks, moments of fragile understanding began to weave together into a tapestry of shared healing. Emily allowed herself to trust again, slowly, deliberately, while Marcus worked to prove that his return was not just an attempt to rewrite the past, but a genuine commitment to building a future rooted in love, honesty, and mutual support. Late one night, as Marcus sat at the window watching the rain, he reflected on how far they had come. The truth, once a painful burden, had become the foundation upon which they would rebuild. It was not an easy road. Every conversation was a reminder of the lost years and the mistakes that had led to their separation. Yet, in the quiet moments of shared laughter, in the whispered confessions of regret, and in the small, tender gestures of forgiveness, there was a promise that the family would find a way to heal together. As the rain ceased and the first glimmers of dawn appeared on the horizon, Marcus felt a profound shift within him. The fragile understanding that had taken root was not a cure-all for the wounds of the past, but it was a start, a delicate, hopeful beginning of a new chapter in their lives. In that soft light, as the world awoke around him, Marcus vowed to nurture this fragile bond with every fiber of his being, knowing that true healing was a journey taken one small, honest step at a time. With each passing day, Marcus sought to rebuild the family bond that had been so painfully fractured. In the quiet mornings and gentle evenings, simple routines took on extraordinary meaning. Together with Jamie, he began exploring the small joys of life, a shared breakfast at a time-worn table, walks in a nearby park where the rustling leaves whispered of new beginnings, and afternoons spent constructing intricate Lego castles that transformed their modest living room into a realm of imagination. One bright Saturday morning, the sun streaming in through the curtains with the promise of renewal, Marcus and Jamie set out on an impromptu adventure. Their destination was a small museum on the outskirts of town, renowned for its natural history exhibits. The museum was a wonderland of ancient relics, towering dinosaur skeletons, and interactive displays that sparked endless curiosity. For Marcus, it was not just a day out. It was a chance to bond with Jamie, to share in the marvels of discovery, and to create memories that could help mend the fissures of their shared past. As they strolled through the museum's grand halls, Jamie's eyes widened in wonder at each exhibit. Marcus watched with a mix of joy and bittersweet reflection as his son eagerly explained facts he had picked up from books and school lessons. There was a moment near a magnificent display of a Spinosaurus, when Jamie paused to compare it with the T-Rex, his voice filled with earnest excitement. "Dad, did you know the Spinosaurus could swim and hunt in water?" he asked, his small face alight with passion for knowledge. Marcus's heart swelled with pride as he listened, recognizing in Jamie a spark of curiosity that mirrored his own long-forgotten dreams. The day was filled with laughter and shared wonder. Marcus recalled a time when life had been simpler, when love and adventure had been the cornerstones of his existence, and he vowed that, from now on, no moment would be wasted. Every smile, every question, and every shared discovery was a small beginning, a brick in the foundation of a future that could be rebuilt from the ruins of their painful past. Later that afternoon, as they sat together on a park bench beneath a canopy of blooming trees, Marcus turned to Jamie with a thoughtful expression. "I know I missed a lot, and I know I can't change what happened," he said softly. "But I want to be here for you from now on. Every adventure, every quiet moment. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Jamie's eyes shone with unshed tears and cautious hope as he nodded in understanding. It was a simple promise, but in its sincerity lay the seeds of healing and renewal. As the day turned to dusk, The park bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun. Marcus felt that small beginnings, those everyday acts of love and commitment, were the stepping stones to a future where forgiveness might one day blossom. Though the shadows of the past still lingered, each shared smile and every moment of genuine connection was a testament to the transformative power of love. In that twilight, Marcus realized that while the past could never be undone, the present held the promise of a new beginning, a promise that was now etched in every word of the vow he had made to Jamie. As the seasons changed, so did the rhythm of life in the modest apartment that had become the center of Marcus, Emily, and Jamie's fragile reconciliation. With winter's chill giving way to the hopeful freshness of spring, the air itself seemed to hum with new possibilities. Marcus dedicated himself to creating more moments of joy, to weaving laughter and love back into the fabric of their everyday existence. One radiant afternoon, the family ventured out to a local park famous for its sprawling gardens and picturesque lakes. The park was alive with the vibrancy of blooming flowers and the playful chatter of children at play. Marcus, eager to reclaim a piece of the past he had once cherished, found himself drawn into a spontaneous conversation with Jamie about dinosaurs, a topic that had become their shared language of wonder and discovery. As they strolled along the winding paths, Jamie enthusiastically pointed out details of each display, a fossil, a replica skeleton, or a carved plaque, with the innocence of a young scientist exploring the mysteries of the world. Marcus laughed heartily as Jamie explained, in his own charming way, the differences between a T-Rex and a Spinosaurus. "You should be my science advisor someday, Dad," Jamie exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with pride. For Marcus, that laughter was a balm, a momentary reprieve from the heavy memories of loss and regret. Each burst of joy, every shared joke, was a tiny victory against the darkness of the past. In the quiet moments between the laughter, Marcus found himself reflecting on how his life had changed since that fateful day in the cemetery. The pain of years gone by still lingered, but now it was tempered by the warmth of love and the promise of a future where family came first. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the vibrant park, the family settled on a soft patch of grass. Emily, who had gradually started to open up after months of guarded solitude, sat close to Marcus. There was a delicate balance in the air, a fragile harmony born of shared memories, unspoken apologies, and the tentative steps toward healing. "I used to dream about a future where we'd all be together," Emily admitted quietly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Maybe I was too young, too hopeful, but I never stopped believing that someday we'd find our way back to each other." Marcus reached out and gently took her hand. "We're finding our way, one day at a time," he replied, his voice soft but resolute. It was a promise to cherish every moment, to rebuild what had been broken not with grand gestures, but with everyday acts of care and kindness. As dusk settled and the sky transformed into a canvas of deep blues and purples, Jamie, now tired from the day's adventures, nestled between his parents. In that tender embrace, Marcus felt that despite the long and winding journey they had endured, moments of pure, unadulterated joy had begun to illuminate even the darkest corners of their past. That day in the park was not just a fleeting moment. It was the promise of many more, a gentle reminder that love, when nurtured, could overcome even the deepest wounds. Yet, as the seasons continued their relentless march, not all wounds healed so easily. Behind the quiet smiles and shared laughter lay the hidden pain that neither Marcus nor Emily could fully escape. One particularly cold evening, as the wind howled outside their apartment and the rain beat against the windows, Emily's facade finally began to crumble. Marcus had noticed small signs before, a tremor in her voice, a fleeting look of despair, but that night, the pain became undeniable. It happened in the silence of a hospital room, where Emily lay hooked up to a maze of monitors. The steady beep of machines was a cruel counterpoint to the fragility of life. Marcus sat by her side, holding her hand, while Jamie slept in a small chair nearby, unaware of the gravity of the situation. "I'm tired, Marcus," Emily murmured, her voice wavering with each breath. "I'm so very tired." Her eyes, filled with unshed tears, pleaded for comfort, for understanding. And yet, they also held the unmistakable hint of resignation. The diagnosis was devastating, a terminal illness that would soon steal the light from her eyes. In that sterile room, as the rain hammered against the windows and the cold seeped into their bones, Marcus's heart broke anew. The pain of realizing that the woman he had once loved, the mother who had fought alone for Jamie, was slipping away, was almost too much to bear. He whispered promises to her, promises of love, of protection for Jamie, and of a future where her memory would live on. Every whispered word was an oath, a desperate plea to somehow mend the fractures that time and tragedy had wrought. As the hours passed, Marcus held on to Emily's hand with all the strength he could muster, each heartbeat a testament to their shared history and the hope that even in the face of unbearable loss, love would endure. Jamie stirred from his slumber, drawn by the quiet sounds of his parents' soft conversation. His innocent eyes, wide with concern, looked up at Marcus, silently asking, "Will everything be okay?" Marcus squeezed his hand gently, forcing a smile despite the tears that blurred his vision. "We'll make it through," he whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. That night, as Marcus sat alone in the quiet hospital corridor after Emily was taken to a private room, he felt the weight of 1,000 regrets. The hidden pain, the choices made, the words unsaid, and the moments lost seemed to converge in a torrent of sorrow. Yet, amid the despair, there was a fierce resolve. Marcus vowed that even if Emily's light were to fade, he would carry her memory forward, ensuring that Jamie would know of the strength and love that had once defined their family. The hospital corridor, with its flickering fluorescent lights and hushed voices, became the setting for a silent promise that the hidden pain of the past would not be allowed to define their future. In that quiet determination, Marcus found a small spark of hope, a hope that even the deepest wounds, when nurtured with love and truth, could eventually lead to healing. In the weeks following that heart-wrenching night at the hospital, the fragile rhythm of life continued to beat in the face of inevitable loss. Emily, growing weaker with each passing day, clung to every moment with a mixture of quiet defiance and sorrowful acceptance. It was during one of these tender moments, as the soft light of dawn crept through the hospital window, that Emily summoned the strength to make one final request of Marcus, a request that would shape the future of their small family. "Marcus," she said in a voice so gentle it nearly blended with the hum of the machines around her, "promise me that you'll take care of Jamie. Not with cold institutions or indifferent guardians, but with the warmth of a father's love." Her eyes, though tired, shone with an intensity born of love and desperation. In her frail grasp, she pressed a small, worn notebook into his hands, a repository of letters, memories, and heartfelt confessions she had kept hidden for years. Marcus's throat tightened as he took the notebook, its pages yellowed with time and delicate with the weight of emotions. "I promise," he vowed, his voice breaking with sincerity. "I will do everything in my power to be the father that Jamie needs." In that quiet exchange, every unsaid apology, every regretful tear, and every ounce of hope mingled into a single, potent promise, a promise that was both a burden and a beacon for the days to come. For Emily, the promise was not merely words, it was a legacy. In her final days, she shared stories of her dreams and her love for Jamie, filling the silent room with memories of happier times. She spoke of a future where the echoes of loss would be replaced by laughter and where Marcus's presence would guide Jamie toward a life filled with love and possibility. "Keep this notebook," she whispered as she traced her fingers over the handwritten lines, "and let it remind you both of what we once dreamed of, a future where love triumphs over all pain." As the inevitable moment drew near, Marcus and Jamie remained by her side. Emily's condition grew steadily worse, but her determination to see her son secure in the arms of a caring father burned brighter than the shadows of despair. In her final hours, she looked at Marcus with eyes that mingled sorrow with fierce hope. "Be strong," she murmured. "Promise me you'll keep him safe, and promise that you'll never let the past define your love for him." And with those whispered words, as the quiet machines marked the final beat of her heart, Emily slipped away, leaving behind a legacy of love, regret, and the promise of redemption. In the wake of Emily's passing, the house felt unbearably empty. a silence so profound that every corner seemed to echo with her absence. The days that followed were marked by a slow, agonizing grief. Marcus, burdened by guilt and regret, found solace only in the promise he had made to Emily. He knew that he had to let go of the ghosts of his past if he was to embrace the fragile future waiting for him and Jamie. The funeral was a quiet affair, attended by few but marked by the overwhelming sense of loss. As Marcus stood by Emily's grave, her final resting place adorned with a single white lily, he felt an ache that no wealth or success could ever heal. In that moment, he realized that letting go did not mean forgetting. It meant carrying forward the love and the lessons of the past, even if it meant enduring the pain. In the weeks that followed, Marcus dedicated himself to becoming the father Jamie deserved. He took to reading the notebook Emily had left him, finding in its pages the strength to rebuild their lives. Every handwritten note, every faded photograph, became a reminder of the woman who had once filled their home with hope. Slowly, the small, seemingly insignificant moments, a shared cup of tea, a walk in the park, or the sound of Jamie's laughter, became the building blocks of a new family bond. One crisp autumn evening, as Marcus sat on the porch with Jamie curled up beside him, he finally let go of the past. "I promise," he said softly, stroking Jamie's hair. "I'm going to honor Mom by being the best father I can be. I know it won't bring her back, but I can keep her memory alive in the way we live our lives." Jamie's eyes, so full of innocent hope, sparkled in the fading light, and in that moment, Marcus felt a small measure of redemption. Time, as it always does, began to smooth the rough edges of grief. The family started to find a new rhythm, a careful balance of remembrance and hope. Marcus found himself laughing at Jamie's jokes, sharing stories of happier times, and even finding a way to smile at the bittersweet memories of Emily's laughter. Though the pain of loss never completely disappeared, it became interwoven with the promise of love, a love that, despite everything, had endured. A full year had passed since that fateful day when the cemetery had become the crucible of their shattered past. In that time, the once fractured family had embarked on a journey of healing, one defined by small victories, unspoken understanding, and the gradual rebuilding of trust. Marcus, once a cold and distant billionaire CEO, had transformed into a father determined to cherish every moment with Jamie, while Emily's memory continued to guide their every step. The apartment, once filled with echoes of loss, now resonated with the warmth of shared laughter and quiet moments of togetherness. Every corner told a story of redemption, resilience, and the unwavering power of love. Marcus had taken to keeping Emily's notebook close at hand, a sacred relic of promises made and kept, and a constant reminder of the lessons learned in the crucible of pain. On a bright, sunny morning, as the family gathered in the living room for breakfast, Jamie bounded up with the exuberance of a child unburdened by sorrow. "Dad, can we go see the museum again?" he asked, his eyes alight with the same curiosity that had once enchanted Marcus. With a warm smile and a heart full of renewed hope, Marcus nodded. "Of course, Jamie. Today, we'll make new memories." As they set out on their little adventure, the city seemed transformed, a canvas of endless possibilities, painted with the vibrant hues of a future built on truth, love, and forgiveness. Marcus walked beside Jamie with quiet determination, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Every step they took was a testament to the fact that even in the midst of pain and regret, a new beginning was possible, a beginning defined not by the ghosts of the past, but by the promise of tomorrow. In the quiet after the storm of loss and betrayal, Marcus and Jamie emerged into a world reborn, a world where the echoes of the past were transformed into a guiding light for a brighter future. In the years that followed, Marcus dedicated himself to nurturing the bond with his son, teaching him not only the lessons of history, but also the hope that comes from second chances. Together, they built a life rich with simple pleasures, quiet evenings spent reading from Emily's treasured notebook, joyful outings to museums and parks, and shared moments of laughter that echoed the love they had fought so hard to reclaim. Marcus had learned that redemption was not a single, grand gesture, but a collection of small acts of kindness, honesty, and courage. Each day was an opportunity to honor the past by living fully in the present, to transform the bitter memories of loss into the sweet promise of a future defined by resilience and love. As he watched Jamie flourish into a curious, compassionate young man, Marcus realized that though the wounds of the past might never completely fade, they had become the very foundation upon which a new legacy was built, a legacy of love, truth, and unwavering hope. And so, as the sun set on another day filled with promise, Marcus stood on the porch with Jamie by his side, the soft glow of the twilight enveloping them in a quiet embrace. In that serene moment, he whispered a silent vow to always be there, to nurture the light of love in even the darkest times, and to forever honor the memory of the woman who had taught them that even broken hearts could find a way to mend. This was not the end of their story, but merely the beginning of a lifetime of healing, laughter, and unconditional love, a new chapter written not with regrets, but with hope. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. If this story touched your heart or made you think, please take a moment to give it a like. It truly means a lot. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of the powerful stories we share here. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your words inspire me to keep creating meaningful content. Until next time, take care and stay inspired.